In the heart of the Arctic tundra, where the snow stretched endlessly and the northern lights painted the sky in hues of green and purple, lived a young reindeer named Frost. Frost was no ordinary reindeer. He had a coat as white as freshly fallen snow and antlers that glistened like ice under the moonlight. But despite his beauty, Frost was lonely. The other reindeer in his herd were wary of him, for he was different. They whispered behind his back, calling him the ghost of the tundra, and avoided him at every turn. One fateful day, while wandering near the frozen coastline, Frost's loneliness led him to explore the icy shores. The sea was a vast frozen expanse, and the air was filled with the eerie creaking of icebergs. As he trotted along the edge of the ice, he noticed something strange, a cluster of barnacles clinging to the rocks. Curious, Frost leaned in closer, but before he could react, the barnacles latched onto his legs, their sharp edges cutting into his flesh. Frost let out a cry of pain, but the sound was swallowed by the howling wind. He struggled to free himself, but the barnacles held fast, and the more he struggled, the deeper they cut. To make matters worse, parasites began to swarm around his wounds, drawn by the scent of blood. Frost's strength waned as the pain and exhaustion took their toll. He collapsed onto the ice, his breath coming in shallow gasps, and his vision blurred as the cold began to seep into his bones. Meanwhile, in a small fishing village not far from the coastline, a scrappy little dog named Max was having a rough day. Max was a mutt, with a patchy coat of brown and white fur and a tail that never stopped wagging. He was known in the village as the underdog, always getting into trouble, but never giving up. Max had been abandoned by his previous owners and had found a new home with an old fisherman named Olaf. Olaf was kind but stern, and he often scolded Max for his mischievous ways. That day, Max had been chasing seagulls along the shore when he stumbled upon a trail of blood in the snow. His nose twitched as he sniffed the air, and his ears perked up at the sound of faint whimpering. Max followed the trail, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and curiosity. As he approached the edge of the ice, he saw Frost lying there, his white coat stained with blood, his eyes half closed. Max hesitated for a moment. He had never seen a reindeer up close before, and the sight of Frost's antlers made him nervous. But then he heard Frost's weak cry, and something inside him stirred. Max knew he had to help. Max barked loudly, hoping to attract Frost's attention, but the reindeer was too weak to respond. Max then began to tug at the barnacles with his teeth, but they were firmly embedded in Frost's flesh. Realizing he needed help, Max raced back to the village, barking and howling until he found Olaf. Olaf, though skeptical at first, followed Max back to the coastline. When he saw Frost, his eyes widened in shock. "By the gods, what happened to you?" he muttered as he knelt beside the reindeer. With Max's help, Olaf carefully removed the barnacles and cleaned Frost's wounds. He then wrapped the reindeer's legs in bandages made from strips of cloth and gave him some warm broth to drink. Frost's strength slowly returned, and he looked up at Max with gratitude in his eyes. Max wagged his tail and licked Frost's nose, as if to say, "You're going to be okay." Over the next few weeks, Frost stayed in Olaf's cabin, recovering from his injuries. Max never left his side, keeping him company and even sharing his food with the reindeer. The two quickly became inseparable. Frost, who had never known friendship, found solace in Max's playful antics and unwavering loyalty. Max, in turn, found a kindred spirit in Frost, someone who understood what it was like to be an outcast. As Frost grew stronger, he and Max would venture out into the snow, exploring the tundra together. They would race across the frozen landscape, their laughter echoing in the crisp air. Frost taught Max how to navigate the icy terrain, while Max showed Frost the joy of chasing seagulls and rolling in the snow. One day, as they were playing near the coastline, they encountered a pack of wolves. The wolves, hungry and desperate, circled the two friends, their eyes gleaming with malice. Frost stood tall, his antlers lowered in a defensive stance, while Max barked fiercely, his small body trembling with fear but refusing to back down. Just as the wolves were about to attack, Olaf appeared, wielding a torch and shouting at the top of his lungs. The wolves, startled by the sudden noise and light, retreated into the shadows. Olaf sighed in relief and patted Max on the head. "You two are quite the pair," he said with a chuckle. As the months passed, Frost and Max's friendship grew stronger. Frost's herd, seeing the bond between the reindeer and the dog, began to accept Frost back into their fold. They realized that Frost's uniqueness was not something to be feared, but celebrated. Max, too, found a new sense of belonging, not just with Frost, but with the entire village. One evening, as the northern lights danced across the sky, Frost and Max stood side by side on a hill overlooking the tundra. Frost turned to Max and nuzzled him gently. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "You saved my life, and you gave me something I never thought I'd have. A friend." Max wagged his tail and licked Frost's nose. "And you gave me a family," he replied. From that day on, Frost and Max became legends in the Arctic, their story passed down from generation to generation. They were a symbol of hope, courage, and the power of friendship. A reminder that even in the harshest of environments, love and kindness could thrive. And so, the reindeer and the dog lived happily ever after, their bond unbreakable, their hearts forever intertwined. Every video is a piece of our heart, crafted with hours of love and effort just for you. If it brought you joy, please give it a like, leave a comment, or subscribe. It means the world to us and keeps us going. Thank you for being part of our journey.